The air inside Air Force One was tense, thick with anticipation and uncertainty as the staff exchanged anxious glances. President Trump was returning to Washington on January 4, 2026, after a day that would soon be etched into history. Just hours before, a bold U.S. military raid in Venezuela had shocked the world, dominating headlines and sparking urgent debates across the globe. In the plane's conference room, a group of reporters waited restlessly for the president who had personally ordered the high-stakes mission. President Trump entered, bypassing his prepared remarks to address the press directly, determined to control the narrative himself. He recounted the tense hours leading up to the operation, describing the immense responsibility and the gravity of his decision. Trump called the mission a great success, highlighting that no American soldiers were harmed, a point he repeated for emphasis. He explained that this was not just a military action, but a necessary step to address a humanitarian crisis that, in his words, the world had ignored for far too long. The president used simple, direct language, making his message unmistakably clear for all who listened both at home and abroad. He wanted the world to understand the seriousness of the situation and the reasons behind his decisive action, knowing his words would echo far beyond the room. Trump insisted the operation was perfectly executed and fully justified, standing by his decision with unwavering confidence. The conversation aboard Air Force One marked the beginning of a new chapter for Venezuela and signaled a shift in America's role on the world stage. Reporters, aware of the historic weight of the moment, knew his words would shape global understanding and future policy regarding this dramatic event. The president's tone was firm and resolute, leaving no doubt about his conviction or the seriousness with which he viewed the mission. This was a defining moment in his presidency, and Trump was determined to be remembered as the author of this bold new chapter in American history. The operation was like something out of a movie, an audacious plan unfolding under the cover of darkness, with the fate of a nation hanging in the balance. Delta Force stormed the presidential palace in Caracas, moving with precision and speed, their every step calculated to avoid detection. The mission was swift, catching palace guards completely off guard. The element of surprise was total, leaving the defenders with no time to mount a response. The goal was clear: capture President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, with minimal bloodshed, ensuring the safety of civilians and avoiding unnecessary violence. Months of CIA planning, surveillance, and intelligence gathering led to this moment. Every detail had been scrutinized, every risk weighed. President Trump praised the bravery and professionalism of the soldiers, emphasizing the danger they faced and the importance of avoiding a citywide battle that could have cost countless lives. The U.S. military confirmed no American casualties, but several Cuban security advisors protecting Maduro were killed in the crossfire, highlighting the international stakes. Maduro and his wife were quickly flown out of Venezuela, under heavy guard, to New York City to face federal charges, including narco-terrorism. In Venezuela, chaos erupted as news of the raid spread. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez declared herself acting leader, denouncing the raid as an illegal kidnapping and calling for international condemnation. The capture of a sitting president by foreign forces is almost unheard of, raising huge questions about international law, sovereignty, and the limits of intervention. The U.S. framed it as justice served. Others around the world saw it as a blatant violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, sparking heated debate. The midnight raid ended Maduro's rule and triggered a global crisis, sending shockwaves through diplomatic circles and financial markets alike. The world watched in real time, uncertain what would come next, as people everywhere tried to make sense of the unfolding events. The operation's complexity and risks were immediately clear, with military analysts calling it one of the most daring missions in recent history. The event marked the start of a new power struggle in Venezuela, as rival factions vied for control and protesters filled the streets. International reactions were swift and polarized, with some leaders supporting the intervention and others condemning it outright. The mission's success set off a chain of unpredictable consequences, from surging oil prices to volatile stock markets and urgent debates in world capitals. The region braced for instability, as neighboring countries prepared for possible spillover and humanitarian organizations warned of a looming crisis. The world's eyes remained fixed on Caracas, waiting to see how history would unfold in the days and weeks ahead. On Air Force One, President Trump sat down with reporters and offered a detailed explanation for the timing and urgency of the raid. He emphasized that the decision was not made lightly, but after careful consideration of the facts on the ground and the growing crisis in Venezuela. He described Venezuela as a nation in collapse, painting a vivid picture of daily life where families faced empty shelves, long food lines, and a broken economy that left millions struggling to survive. The humanitarian situation, he said, had reached a breaking point. Trump argued the U.S. had a moral responsibility to intervene in such a dire humanitarian crisis. He pointed to American aid efforts already underway, but insisted that more decisive action was needed to truly make a difference for the Venezuelan people. He also claimed Maduro's regime was not only oppressing its own people, but had become a threat to regional security, with deep ties to the global drug trade and criminal networks that destabilize neighboring countries. By framing the mission as part of the broader fight against narco-terrorism, Trump justified the timing, saying it was essential to act before the threat grew even larger and spilled further across borders. He insisted U.S. control of Venezuela was only temporary, with the clear goal of restoring order, supporting the Venezuelan people, and enabling a peaceful, democratic transition to new leadership. Trump contrasted his decisive action with what he called the weakness and indecision of his political opponents, arguing that bold leadership was needed in times of crisis. He portrayed himself as a leader unafraid to use American power and resources to bring stability, security, and hope to a region in turmoil. The operation, he said, was proof that his America First policy was not just a slogan, but a real strategy, delivering results both at home and abroad. Trump wanted the world to see the U.S. as a responsible power, one that intervenes not to occupy, but to help, and to stand up for those in need. The mission was, in his words, a bold and necessary step for both America and Venezuela, setting a new standard for international leadership. The president's message was clear: strong action was not only justified, but essential for the good of all, and for the future stability of the region. The U.S. raid in Venezuela split the world. Rivals like Russia, China, and Iran condemned the operation as illegal aggression. They accused the U.S. of imperialism and violating international law. At home, Congress erupted in debate, with critics questioning the president's authority to act without approval. Some warned this set a dangerous precedent for unchecked presidential power. Meanwhile, many Venezuelans in exile celebrated, hoping for a new democratic future. Rallies broke out in cities worldwide, with some thanking Trump and others waving Venezuelan flags. The world was divided. Some saw a heroic rescue, others an illegal invasion for oil. The U.S. action forced nations and people to choose sides. The crisis was just beginning, with deep disagreements fueling global tension. The intervention's motives were hotly debated. Supporters called it liberation, critics called it self-interest. The world's reaction was immediate and intense. The raid drew a line in the sand. The future of Venezuela and U.S. foreign policy hung in the balance. The story was far from over. With Maduro gone, Venezuela's future is uncertain. President Trump promised U.S. leadership in rebuilding, focusing on reviving the oil industry with help from American companies. Critics accused the administration of seeking control over Venezuela's oil, fueling suspicions about U.S. motives. The White House insisted the goal was economic recovery, but many doubted this narrative. Politically, Trump was vague about who would lead Venezuela next. Acting leader Delcy Rodriguez condemned the U.S., making cooperation unlikely. The U.S. called for a transition to stable government, but finding an accepted leader will be difficult. Venezuela faces a power vacuum, a shattered economy, and deep divisions. Rebuilding will require more than oil. It will demand trust and real representation. The world watches to see if intervention brings hope or chaos. President Trump's remarks signaled a new U.S. approach to Latin America. He criticized Cuba and Colombia, expressing dissatisfaction with the region's politics. The direct intervention in Venezuela marked a major escalation in U.S. policy. Trump positioned America as the region's ultimate authority, ready to act alone to solve problems. Supporters called this the new Trump doctrine, using military and economic power to confront corrupt regimes. They argued strong action deters adversaries and brings stability. Critics warned this approach could fuel instability and resentment. Unilateral intervention, they said, undermines international law and alienates allies. Acting as the hemisphere's policeman risks backlash from neighbors. The long-term consequences are unknown. The U.S. could bring order, or spark new conflict and anti-American sentiment. The doctrine's impact will shape the region for years. The world is watching how far America will go. The stakes for Latin America have never been higher. The capture of Maduro leaves the world with tough questions. Can the US legally try a foreign leader? The New York trial will set a precedent. Venezuela's future is uncertain. Will its people accept a US-backed government? There's a real risk of civil conflict between Maduro loyalists and US supporters. The operation could provoke retaliation from Russia, China, or others. Some fear it will inspire more interventions worldwide, making the world less stable. The US has shown its strength, but may have opened a Pandora's box. Trump is betting on decisive action to bring stability, but the challenges are immense. The world waits to see if this gamble pays off, or leads to deeper crisis. The road ahead is uncertain, and history will judge the outcome.